Fight week is here and UFC 292 is this Saturday. Mark and I are going to make our predictions for the main card. But before we do, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So, Mark, let's start with the main event. We have Aljamain Sterling defending his bantamweight title against Sugar Sean O'Malley. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
I've flopped between the two, Dwain, if I'm honest, but I've got to go with Aljamain. I think that championship mentality that we spoke about a lot, this isn't his first 5-round fight. He's a submission specialist. He's an absolute machine, and I don't think he gets the credit he does deserve. And I think he might even be able to finish Sean maybe with a late submission, grind him down, and then submit him to retain his belt. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that people do really underestimate Aljamain, and we doubt him every second. But I do underestimate him, and I do doubt him because I think he's going to get knocked out in the second or third round quite early on by O'Malley. Because this is the first time that Aljamain's ever fought anyone with a longer reach than him. Like even Corey Sandhagen had a shorter reach than Aljamain. So I think that reach advantage is going to make a huge difference. And I think a lot of people are underestimating Sean O'Malley's ability on the ground. I think if you go watch him in some of these jiu-jitsu tournaments and grappling tournaments, he's actually really good. And I know Piotr Jan kind of gave him a lot of problems on the ground, but O'Malley did get up every single time, and he was progressing and he was trying to get submissions. And it's a different kind of fight entirely. So I am interested to kind of see how it goes. But you made an interesting point earlier where you were saying that Aljamain's gone through a lot of 5th-round fights. This is going to be O'Malley's first ever 5-round fight, where this is going to be Aljamain's 6th. Do you think that's going to come into play a lot, especially if we get into those later rounds?
I really do. And I'm nowhere near saying that Sean O'Malley doesn't have the cardio for it, because he absolutely will do. And he's going to be well prepared. But I just think the experience level of Aljamain, he's been the champion now since obviously the disqualification win, but he's proved himself time and time again. And I think that with the backpack technique, once Aljamain wraps them Chris Hoy legs wrapped around Sean O'Malley, I think he might even just be able to wear him down and just get the late submission. Now I've said this, O'Malley's going to knock him out in the first round, but this is really what I do feel like. I'm not a doubter of Aljamain Sterling anymore. I think he's proved himself, and I think he's going to be here, retain the championship, and then he's going to move up to featherweight.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he'll definitely move up to featherweight no matter what, and it's really, really interesting. But do you feel like with sort of Aljamain's style, we've seen too much of it now, and Sean can really kind of prepare for that? Because we know that Aljamain, if he fails the takedown, he's just going to put his forehead on the mat and just wait. And Sean might take advantage of that. I was watching some of O'Malley's tournaments the other day, and that happened in one of his grappling ones. Some guy put his head down. He just kind of jumped over him and got his back. Yeah, if Sean O'Malley gets Aljamain's back, I am going to lose my mind. I'll be so excited.
It'll be an absolute slap in the face for Aljamain. But if that is his technique, then he shouldn't be doing that as a champion. I really don't think. Although we have seen him do that even in the second Piotr Jan fight. Do you remember he was on the floor like a jaguar or something like that, like just shaking his head around? It was just weird. But I'm sticking to my guns. I think Aljamain might be able to get it done. Although I'm not saying this is going to be an absolute easy fight for him, not at all, because Sean O'Malley is here. I think he is here to stay. But I do think Aljamain is just going to be able to retain.
Well, I think a lot of people are forgetting about Sean O'Malley's finishing power. Don't forget, he's had 4 finishes in his last 5 fights. 1 a knockout, 2 a TKO, and 1 a poke in the eye by Edward Scissorhands. So he's still a finish. So I think that's going to come into play a lot. But let's move on now to the co-main event. We have Zhang Weili defending her strawweight belt against Amanda Lemos. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
I'm going to have to side with you. I don't have to ask your prediction, Dwain. I'm going to go with you. I think Zhang is going to prove herself that she is the strawweight queen. And I think she will be for some time, if I'm honest. Because Rose Namajunas, she's got a fight announced, but that's the only blemish, really, isn't it? And I think no one else offers Zhang anything she won't have seen before, and I think she's probably going to get a finish early. I think.
Mark, you can't just assume that I'd pick Zhang Weili. I'm a dedicated analyst, and I have no bias whatsoever. But yeah, I think first round submission for Zhang Weili. I think she's going to pummel Amanda Lemos. She's going to drag her to the floor and just batter her. But
is this your wet dream now, Dwain? That we're saying that was too descriptive for it just to be off the cuff. This has been studied.
I may have thought about it for a while. But yeah, it seems too obvious a choice, right? Jokes aside, Zhang Weili has sort of proved that she is that strawweight queen now. And, you know, you was talking about Rose, and that's a rematch that a lot of people want to see, but it looks like Rose is moving up a weight division now. She doesn't seem interested in strawweight anymore, which is fair enough. You know, good for her. She's getting a bit older now. Move up. Maybe fight Valentina. That'd be a really, really good fight if she can beat Grasser again. But we don't want to go too far about these other divisions. But let's go back to Zhang and Amanda Lemos. So do you think this is kind of a mismatch? Do you think with Amanda Lemos, you know, she hasn't really got any huge wins on her name? You know, I think the biggest name's for a Hill, and that was years ago or a while ago. I don't remember when it was. It was a while ago. Do you think this is just another lamb to the slaughter for Zhang Weili?
Pretty much. I think especially the strawweight division, unless you're at the very, very top, it pretty much is just a lamb to the slaughter, like you say. We've said this before about a different division where they can show the highlight footage all they want of Amanda Lemos, but anyone who's seen Zhang and Amanda actually fight before, they just think, well, she's going to run through her, as in Zhang's going to run through Amanda. It just seems like they plucked someone out of nowhere who maybe is on a 1 or 2 fight winning streak and just, go on, then have a title shot. You know, and I don't think it's deserving, but who else is there if everyone else is booked up? I think this is just going to be another gem, another jewel in the belt for Zhang.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? Because the big problem with that kind of division, you're so right, it's that very top and then it's everybody else. You know, the only real person we can see as a threat is Rose if she moves back down. But the big problem is Amanda Lemos just doesn't seem good enough. But maybe we shouldn't underestimate her. You know, she's got decent striking, she's got good submissions, she's pretty well rounded. But so is Zhang Weili. She's very well rounded, but better everywhere. And I feel that's going to be the real problem for Amanda. She's just fighting someone who's just too good, just too high, a level for her. But sort of talking about levels, we're now moving on to Neil Magny moving in as a last-minute replacement against Ian Garry. Mike, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
I've got to go with Ian Garry. I do like Neil Magny. I'm actually gutted that we didn't get Ian Garry versus Jeff Neal. But, you know, things happen. As a last-minute replacement, and just with how big Ian Garry is, I think he's going to be able to get a finish, to be honest. And I'm not always on the hype train, but I'm behind him. I think his career so far, it's so good. You know, he's undefeated. He's got some devastating finishes as well. And he's a kind of likable guy, to be fair. Not that matters if you're in the cage. You know, someone's like, I'm sure CM Punk was a likable guy, but, you know, he can still get battered. I just think, maybe not if you've been to a match, but I just think Ian Garry might even just be able to showcase his power and maybe even get a finish over Neil Magny.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you. I'm picking Ian Garry by finish. I think in the later round, second or third round, he's going to get a knockout because he's just so big and he's a decent striker. But Neil Magny could cause some real problems here for him because don't forget, Neil could just push him up against the fence and grind out a decision win. And over 3 rounds, that time can go very, very quickly. You know, you can lose a round, then you try to play catch up, then he pushes you against the fence in the third, and the next thing you know, you've lost a decision, but nothing's happened. And I think that could be the real problem with him fighting Neil. But yeah, I would have preferred to have seen him fight Jeff Neal because I think that would have been a really, really fun, striking match. Would have had a lot of fun, entertainment. Whereas I feel this is going to be that sort of grindy, pushy fight. But Neil Magny's stepping up at like a week and a half's notice. Do you think that's going to be a big factor in this fight? Do you think Neil's going to have the conditioning and be ready to even go 3 rounds? You know, holding up a big guy against the fence like that is going to take a lot of energy. And I know it's not 5 rounds, but it's still, that's difficult. 15 minutes of holding a big guy down is going to take a lot of effort.
Yeah, Neil Magny is a pro. He's somewhat of a vet as well. And he's also no joke. I think he knows what he will be getting into. He won't underestimate the young prospect, the young up-and-coming prospect of Ian Garry. And I think you're right, though, you know, especially with it being this late a notice, it could just be a very grapple-heavy fight. Anyway, you know, Neil Magny's known for that as it is. So why would he stand and trade with someone who's had a 12-week, I'm presuming, training camp, you know, when he can stick to his guns, knows what he does best. But I just think Ian Garry's going to catch him. You got to catch him. I just think he's going to clip him.
Great analysis there, Matt. Well done.
I don't know if that just came in my head.
But I agree. I think he's going to catch him as well. I think it's kind of just set up for that, isn't it? But I'm really, really excited for it. And I'm interested to see how well Ian Garry does with a higher level of competition, and we can see him really move up those rankings. But let's move on to Cody Garbrandt, our boy, fighting Mario Bautista. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
My heart says Cody by first round knockout, but my head is saying Mario maybe by even decision. Cody showed up for his last fight, the old Cody that we knew so well. The kind of it is showboating, but it's when he's way ahead, isn't it? And when he can switch it on, I think it's ridiculously good. But it's whether or not that Cody shows up. If the Cody that we know and love does, I think he could even get a finish because there's no one quicker than him. Yeah. But it depends which one shows up. If this kind of anger-fueled Cody shows up that fought TJ Dillashaw a couple of times, he's like Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. He's just too plagued by anger, and he'll just get finished, I think. What about yourself?
I'm hesitantly picking Cody by decision. Like you were saying, it's so hard to pick Cody's fights, isn't it? Because you don't know who's going to turn up. But I feel like he's been struggling for such a long time because he's been chasing that win. We've said it before, haven't we? Once you lose, it's hard to pull it back because you're constantly chasing it and you make mistakes. I think this time he's going to come out with a lot of confidence, top of the world, and he's going to show who he is. He's Cody Garbrandt, former champion, and I think he's going to get the job done on this occasion. But then we open the card, well, we assume we open the card. It's not been fully announced yet, with Marlon Chito Vera versus Pedro Munhoz. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I think this is a bit of a dark horse fight, to be honest, on the card, Dwain, because don't forget, it was meant to be Chito Vera versus Henry Cejudo. So, but again, like there was enough time for Pedro Munhoz to come in. You know, Cejudo withdrew from the fight early. So I think this is just going to be a fair fight all round. My prediction, I'm gonna say, going off the last performance, I think Pedro's gonna get a decision. I just think Chito Vera doesn't turn it on quick enough. He kind of hovers and waits around, and you know he can wait for that very late stage, and before you know it, the bell's gone, and that's it. 3 rounds is in the bag. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going exactly the same. I'm picking Pedro by decision, but again, it's a very hesitant pick. It's one of those. I think if Chito turns up, he is a monster. You know, he's a great striker. He's got a lot of power. But the big problem is Pedro Munhoz has only been finished once by Sean O'Malley with a poke in the eye. And so I don't know if Chito Vera can finish Pedro, but maybe he is. Maybe he's going to be the first person to really finish Pedro, get a big, scary knockout, big front kick to the chin, you know, that big highlight knockout. It is possible. But like you were saying, I think Chito's just too slow a starter to win a 3-round fight like this. If it was 5 rounds, maybe he'd have a chance. But I think Pedro's too calculated, too smart, and I think he'll get that decision win. But Mike, is there anyone else on the prelims that you think we should be looking out for on this card?
I will direct your attention to one fight, Dwain, and that is the return of Chris Weidman. This is his first fight in 2 years, I believe, and he's against Brad Tavares. Obviously, Chris Weidman suffered, we'll call it a TKO loss, because it technically was. It was the first kick, the first strike thrown in that fight against Uriah Hall, and his shin snapped like I can't even think about it. I'd tune in for this one because Chris has said in a previous interview that the first thing he wants to do is test out his new leg and swing as hard as he can. So get your sick buckets ready just in case it happens again and history repeats itself. I'll check that one out, Dwain. That's where I'm going to avert your attention to. I can see the disgust in your face.
Chris, please don't do that. Don't do it. Don't come out straight away and go, right, I'm going to kick him as hard as I can right in the leg because you're stupid. If he does that, it's short. Well, his opponents heard that. You know, these interviews are public. You know that, right, Chris? Everyone can hear this. So Brad Tavares is just going, well, I'm just going to check it. And Weidman's going to snap his leg again. I'm going to be in tears. But I hope Weidman's bluffing. I hope he comes out, he fakes the kick, just does a big, massive overhand and knocks Brad Tavares out in the first round. That's what I'm really, really hoping for. But that's been our predictions for UFC 292. We will be live streaming, so make sure you come and say hello on Saturday. I do think that's all we've got time for, though. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.